Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
All right, welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Doug. So, Doug, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do for a living.
My name is Doug Winston. I am the president and CEO of D&M Electrical Contracting, based here in Elmsford, New York. I've been in that role for 30 years. I founded the company back in 1993, and we operate in various segments throughout the electrical and utility industry, and have some other little subspecialty type of things we do. So
awesome. So can you just tell me like what gave you the idea to create this company, and also like what exactly your company does?
Well, so I basically roll back to 17 years old, getting ready to graduate from high school. I went to Catholic school. Couldn't graduate without seeing the guidance counselor. Had to go see sister, whatever her name was. I can't remember her name. It's terrible. And she said, "Okay, Mr. Winston, what do we have here?" And she picked up my folder and went, "Westchester Community College for Electrical Engineering Technology." And she threw the file down and said, "What kind of a bullshit course is that?" And I said, "Excuse me, sister?" And she said, "Why aren't you taking regular engineering? What gives you? This is, you should be taking engineering." I said, "Well, I don't want to be an engineer, sister." "Why not?" I hate math, number one. Number two, I don't want to sit behind the desk my whole life." "Well, you could be a field engineer." I said, I have no interest in being an engineer. Sorry, it just doesn't appeal to me. So she starts thinking and she says, "Well, what do you like to do?" "And what do you mean?" "Well, what are you going to do when you leave here today?" I says, "Oh, I'm going to go over to my friend John's house. He's building a 68 Cougar, and I'm going to put the stereo in. I'm doing all the wiring for the car. And, I'm going to help the guys build the engine too, because I'm kind of getting into that." And she says, "So you like to work with your hands?" I said, "Yeah." "And you like electrical stuff?" I said, "Yeah." "Why don't you become an electrician?" And I'm like, "Nah, I don't want a blue collar job." Because of course, we were told blue collar jobs are beneath us. That's what we were taught. So she said, "You just told me you don't want to sit behind a desk. Don't you have any relatives that are electricians?" I said, "Well, yeah, my cousin Al's an electrician. He owns his own business." She goes, "Good, you're going to go home and ask him if you could work for him this summer." "Yes, sister." So I go home, tell my mother that, and she goes, "Oh, that's a great idea. She thinks it'll help you in college." And I go, "Yeah, sure." Of course, my mother didn't care what I did for a living as long as I went to college. Long story short, meet up with my cousin. He's 32 years old. Tells me to meet him at his new house, not his old house. Just built his second house. He says, "I got no mortgage here." "You have no mortgage?" "Yeah." I sold the first house, and I bought this property, and it was a house in between two lots. I knocked the house down, subdivided the property, sold off one lot, kept one for myself. I have no mortgage. So I'm thinking, maybe I want to be an electrical contractor. Well, by 9:30 that night, I left there and decided my whole future. I'm going to be an electrical contractor. I'm going to get my electrical license by the time I'm 25, and I'm going to build a house by the time I'm 30. So fast forward, that's pretty much what I did. Yeah. Now, your second part of your question was, what do we do? That's right. Probably a different topic. So, I worked for my cousin, and mostly we wired houses, and we did some commercial work, not a lot, but I really liked the commercial work more than wiring houses. I learned to wire a house in the first 2 years, and I could do it with my eyes closed. So, I'm the kind of person that tends to get bored a little easily. So I always need to be involved in that next bigger and better thing. So when I went in business, I really needed to always be looking into what's that next vertical market. I don't want to do the same thing everybody else does. So, when I first went in business 30 years ago, we were even in niche markets back then. We had two specialties. One was we used to wire the bus shelters that people would wait in when they are waiting for the bus, and they had illuminated ads in there. And we would put them up, take them down, wire them, maintain them. And we had a pretty nice contract doing that, for, two guys being in business for, a couple of months. And then our other forte was explosion-proof wiring. We used to do wiring for a propane facility, and not a lot of guys do explosion-proof wiring. It's kind of a specialty. We got good at it. 1995, I bought my partner out. We just kind of saw things a little differently. He was more geared towards that residential market, and I kind of had bigger visions. And we started to really ramp up into the gas station market. That became we were good at explosion-proof wiring. So, it enabled us to grab a good market share there. And from 1995 to 1999, there was a government mandate in place to replace every gas tank that was buried underground with new double wall tanks. So basically, every major petroleum company was redoing every gas station in this country. So we had a plethora of work, and it was good work. We made money at it. 1999 comes, well, actually 1998 or so, and the company that we're building a lot of gas stations with, so they said, well, all this work's coming to an end. The mandate comes up in 99. I said, so what are you going to do? They said, nah, we got a new market that we think is going to be pretty good. I'm like, what's that? He says, building cell phone towers. I said, well, yeah, all right, we could do that. That sounds cool. Started doing that, and we would do the wiring related to the tower, everything you could reach with a 6-foot ladder, everything that was on the ground. And we would subcontract out all the high voltage work that was required to bring the feeders up from the property line all the way, usually at the top of some mountain, because that's where cell towers were back then. Probably a few years after we were really into that, one of my guys said, why are we giving away the lion's share of the work? There's all this good work we're not doing. I said, well, do you know how to do this work? I don't know how to do that work. I'm not trained in that. He says, the union's got classes. We'll go take classes and you buy the equipment. So I challenged them. I says, okay, you go get certified on all these things, and you get your certifications. I'll buy the equipment and we'll start doing that work. And they kept their end. I kept my end. Before you knew it, we realized that, geez, cell phone towers, okay, they're a good market, but this high voltage work, I think that's an even better market. And we kind of progressed into that. And today we still operate in niche markets. We still do a lot of high voltage work in terms of distribution work, everything from private clients, public utilities. We do storm restoration all over the country. When you see a fleet of bucket trucks heading to Florida for a hurricane, we're probably in the mix there somewhere. At least 10 or 12 of our trucks are. We are pretty involved in the renewable industry. We're building a lot of solar right now, utility scale solar. And we've probably got about 10 megawatts of solar work we're just presently working on right now. Interconnections for solar, battery storage systems, vehicle charging. So we try to, work in those emerging markets and try to target areas that, where the next big thing's coming. And we still, retained our roots with things that we've always done. So that's a quick little snapshot of what we do.
Makes sense. So in terms of scalability, it's like, what does that look like for you? Like, how do you get in front of, more people or I guess like more companies that they really understand what you're doing and, all these different services that you're continuing to offer?
Well, for our high voltage work in our immediate operating area, utility maintains a list of approved contractors. So you're going to build a job in this area. They're going to send you a list of 3 or 4 people that are approved to do that work. That's our opportunity to tell you what we can do. We try to do it better than anybody else. We try to do it more competitively, and we try to do it, quicker and get your power on. So that's one way we do things. Obviously, we do a little bit of marketing in terms of social media and things. Putting out, just shot out a LinkedIn post of one of our projects where we're going to start installing 10,000 solar panels next week. So always good to use social media. Traditional networking, I'm in this business 37 years. I know a lot of people, and a lot of people call me up because they go, I have no idea what to do with this, but I know you do. And I'll say, yeah, no problem. And I'll, hand them off to one of our estimators or project managers. Will guide him through what he needs, get him a proposal. And usually the question is, how soon can you start? So that's pretty much the position we've put ourselves in. I mean, wasn't always that easy. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think the biggest mistake that all business owners make, and me included when I was younger, was trying to be all things to all people. There's riches in the niches. That's what I was told once. But yet you feel compelled to say, oh, well, we should bid on that school and we should be working on that shopping center. We should be part of that. And all the big guys are doing that. And then we kind of realized, let the big guys do that. Let them stay out of our market and let us stay in our market. And you know what? They're good at that. We're good at this. I don't need to compete against people. And again, when you do niche market work, you don't have a lot of competition. You can kind of name your price a little easier. When you do the same thing everyone else does, you basically have nothing else to compete on but price. So it's a race to the bottom. Who's going to drop their pants the lowest gets the job. We're not interested in that. Just that doesn't work for me. So, I constantly remind our estimators, they'll come over and they'll show me this job. Hey, do we want to bid on this job? And I'll look and I'll say, why would we want to bid on that job? Every moron with a 6-foot ladder is going to bid on that job. It's just going to come down to who does it cheaper. Not interested. So, you try to stay focused in your disciplines, and you look and you say, look, this is what we're good at, and don't lose focus of it. Even when things get a little slow, you got to keep plugging away at that and lose the temptation to say, hey, I'm going to dip my toe back into something that's, a loser. So
makes sense. Like when things do get slow, like how do you make sure that, you get back up to speed? Or you just, like you mentioned social media, like, are you like running ads or like, email marketing? Like, how do you really like get in front of more people?
No, I mean, in our industry, email marketing is what you have to realize is that we're in a position where we are offered the opportunity to bid on probably no less than 50 jobs every day. So, and we refuse probably 49 of them, maybe 48. Okay. So it's not a matter of us going to the work. Work comes to us. It's a matter of us being able to vet what jobs are more suited to us and where we should be focusing our energy. Now, look, you asked me, what do you do when times get slow? You obviously sometimes are going to have to take a job that that you're going to have to take that job to keep your key personnel busy because, maybe you just have a big project that's not going to start for 6 months and you have a gap and you need to fill in. And, maybe you have to take a couple $1 million job and not make a lot of money on it. Or, maybe even break even. And that's a necessary evil that you have to do. It's a business decision. And, have we done it over the years? Yeah. I mean, look, we've definitely done it over the years. But in 30 years, I could tell you that it's not the norm. We don't go out of our way to do that. Also, too, we're a union shop. So being a union shop, things get slow. You lay guys off, send them back to the union hall. You want to just keep your key personnel busy. That's the key. You keep your key personnel. You keep your core. I have being in the construction industry, to us, that's a very normal and very routine thing. When you talk to people in like IT, you see like Google laid people off and they're, crying on TikTok videos. It's like, go file unemployment, shut up, look for a job tomorrow. But, I basically break the world into 2 groups of employees. And some people are very offended by this statement, and I really don't care. But I tell them there's 2 kinds of employees. There's key personnel and there's disposable workforce. Disposable workforce gets hired when there's a abundance, a surplus of work needs to get done. They think that they're, again, look, the disposable workforce makes themselves disposable because the minute you see their resume, you see their job hoppers, right? Every 18 months, they have another job. And I don't care whether they went to another job or whether they were laid off or whatever the case. But if you've had 12 jobs in 10 years, you're not key personnel material. Maybe you will be someday. Right. But the fact of the matter is if you're being hired for that, you're a fill-in. That's it. Right. That's your position, and that's what you choose to make yourself. Key personnel is when the guy comes to you with a resume and said, hey, I worked for Joe down the street for 6 years. Before that, I worked for, Mike for 10 years. And, I know the business. Yeah, okay. That guy doesn't need a resume. He doesn't need anything because you know who he is. You know what he worked for, what he's done. And I can't tell you how many people I've hired over the years said to me, I don't have a resume. You know who I am. Like, yeah, no problem.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the biggest challenge you're facing now in the business?
Well, there's a lot of challenges. I mean, we've gone through them post-pandemic. We've gone through a lot of things here. For us in the pandemic, it really didn't impact us tremendously because we were considered essential. So we kept working. I mean, we never shut a day. The office never closed a day. Nobody worked remotely. We were here every day. To us, it was just like, what's all hoopla about? So we kept working, we kept making money, we kept doing what we were doing, and we kept everybody employed. But then, we started to deal with the supply chain issues, and that's continued to compound itself, and it's become difficult. Then the inflation aspect has been very difficult. Last year, I could tell you that we went from a truckload of utility poles. I used to be able to buy a truckload of utility poles, get them in 2 weeks, and then it became it's going to be 3 to 4 months and the price is triple. So, that's definitely a challenge when you've got jobs that you bid and they're hanging out there and you now are losing, $1,000 on every unit you put in. It's obviously it's going to hurt. You're going to take those lumps, but you know what? You're going to have to do it for a certain amount of time, and you right size things, and you adjust accordingly, and then hopefully what happens, and it usually does, is that inflation kind of right sizes itself a little bit, and the price of copper comes down a little, and the price of other things come down, and now the jobs that you bid when things were crazy high, you're buying a little cheaper. So it's really just a shift of wealth, not so much anything more than it could be devastating to a company that's not prepared for it, not financially stable, doesn't have the resources. But for a established company, again, it's just a shifting of wealth from period to period that you need to weather.
Makes sense. So in terms of scalability, it's like, what is your goal? As your company is growing, it's like, what is in terms of revenue, like, what are you looking to reach in 2024?
I don't care about revenue. That's not an important number. People have all these. I like people say, what are your KPIs? Bottom line. I don't care. If I did half as much volume and increased my profit margin and made more money, I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. Right. People are caught up in really, really bad metrics. People will ask me certain numbers and I go, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. And they're like, you don't track that? I'm like, no. And I'll tell them other things like, well, I could tell you dollars per man hour. And they're like, huh? I've never heard of that statistic before. It's dollars per man hour. That's how much money you're making, how much revenue you're generating for every hour an employee works. That's a measure of efficiency. That's a measure of your company. That's a legitimate metric. And they're like, well, I've never heard of that before. Good. Go ahead. Listen, revenue is for ego, right? Well, we increased our revenue 200% last year. Oh, that's great. What was your profit margin? Like, well, with that come growing pains. So I get it. You lost money. Great. You should be proud of yourself. So again, scalability, look, if you're going to stay within your niche markets, the market is going to dictate what's available for you. So you have two options. Either A, I'm comfortable at this level. We're good. We're making money. Everybody's good. Keeping our key personnel. Don't need to hire more disposable workforce who's maybe going to be questionable work ethic. And we can basically do what you're now. Look, when the market is good, and the market's particularly good in our markets right now, we're putting work on the books. We're going to keep putting work on the books as long as it's good work and we feel that we can man it and make money doing it. But I don't sit here and tell people we must get our sales to this number. No, that's listen, that's for people in the ivory tower that don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's people with MBAs that could maybe teach me something or other. But the fact of the matter is, I've never ever come across anybody with an MBA who could answer my questions about the nuts and bolts operation of a business. Right. All they could quote is some, KPI they got out of their book. This is what we look for.
Right. Huh? So in terms of dollars per man hour, like what is that? I mean, like, what do you try to keep that to? Like what is the number now? And like, what's a good, metric where you say?
Well, you got to remember something. So here's the thing, right?
Right.
You're in an inflationary market. So that number is going to go up false because we're dealing with escalation, labor, material. So it's always going to be, what you're going to do is you're going to look at it. You're going to measure it from last year. And then you're going to say, well, okay, so factoring for inflation, what is this? That's one of the things where, economists will always be fun. I was in a seminar a couple of weeks ago and an economist said, and this was hysterical. He had everybody laughing. He says, I can go tomorrow on CNN and tell you that the economy is amazing right now. Be believable. He says, and then I can go on Fox and tell you that the economy is really not that great. And I can be totally believable. He throws up a chart. And he says, so here is the growth. Here is construction today. And here's construction in 2015. Oh, wow. Look at the growth. Now, if you adjust it for inflation, here's what it looks like.
Right.
Okay. So when you look, not everything's what it seems to be. So again, you need to evaluate things, not so much in terms of dollars and cents, but in relationship to what we're actually trying to measure. That's really where it's more important.
So in terms of technology, like, what does that look like for you? Like, do you use certain softwares that you like, just to improve?
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
So-
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, to be honest with you, I mean, I've always been on the forefront of technology. Our first estimating software in 1996 was DOS based. The manufacturer actually had to kind of make a deal with us to switch to Windows because I said, I own this already and I don't want to buy a new version. He's like, well, we're not supporting that anymore. So here's what we'll do. We're going to give you the Windows version. We'll give you 3 years to pay it off. And, you're going to have to do it. So we kind of shamed us into it, which was fine. But I mean, we've always had software packages and technology before other people even knew what the heck it was. So we have a very robust suite of applications that we use. Some of it is off the shelf and some of it's proprietary that we had developed because we said there's no one size fits all solution that comes out of the box. And if we're going to pay somebody to customize this from us, we might as well just start from scratch and have somebody build us what we want. So, our utility division, there's really nobody who makes any kind of software for the work orders and dispatch, storm, our storm paperwork that we need. We also do a lot of street lighting retrofits. So, we had all these modules built into that. And, we're the only people that have that, to my knowledge. So, I'm sure other people have other things, but, we're working right now with a company which, interestingly enough, was one of the first project management softwares I had back in the late 90s. They actually are coming out with like a complete reboot, and they reached out to us and said, you were like one of our first customers, and would you work with us on beta testing? And right now they're working on not only their particular module that does what it does, but having that control every other application that we work with and integrating everything to the point where we're eliminating double entry. So, we're thrilled to have that. Our key personnel all have iPads in the field. We utilize the best available technology for a lot of things. By the same token, I have paper blueprints here on my desk. Some of our estimators, they like to do on-screen takeoffs and they never print a piece of paper. Me, no, I want to print a piece of paper. I want to make notes on it. I want to draw on it. I want to scribble. I want to leave myself a little note to do something. It all gets put into our estimating software eventually. And, look, I'm the CEO of the company. I don't exactly do a lot of estimating, but by the same token, if we're jammed up and all our estimators got, and there's a nice job, I'm going to sit here and leave me alone and I'm going to figure this job and I'm going to get it for us. So,
Makes sense.
And by the same token, if everybody's out to lunch and a truck comes in, I'm going to go unload that truck. There's not one job in this company I've never done. I have no problem going out there and doing it on any given day. I've unloaded trucks in a suit and tie and then gone off to a union negotiating committee meeting, and not a drop on me. I was, clean as a whistle. How did you do that? I've been doing this for 37 years, kind of
That's
routine.
awesome. If somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you, do you mind sharing your company website or social media handle? Best
Sure.
way for somebody to get in contact with you?
Yeah. So you can visit our website, obviously, www.dmelectrical.com. And I'm always the easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn. We use that's pretty much the only form of social media I use. Because it's for business and I don't have time for any other. So that's an easy place to find me. So if you want to do business with me, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, Doug, we're rooting for you and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.